fans, and welcome to OBR Weekly for Thursday, September 23rd, 2021. My name is Barry McBride. I am the publisher of the OBR. A definition, I really don't understand what it is I do, but I'm called a publisher. And I'm here with the legend, Mr. Freddie Greetham. How you doing, Fred?
Fabulous. Ready to get after it. Glad to have everybody tune in with us tonight, and we're all set. Get going, get you up to date, and get you ready for this week's game with the Chicago Bears.
That sounds like a good plan. As always, ladies and gentlemen, mostly gentlemen, I assume, but hopefully there's some ladies listening. We basically build our show around you, your comments and your questions in the chat room. So let us know, what you'd like us to talk about, any specific questions you might have, or anything like that. I brought, as usual, a couple pages worth of questions and news bits and stuff like that we can talk about. But it's really all about you. Let's dive into the news right away, Fred. Baker Mayfield came up hurting a little bit in the game against the Texans. And now he has adequately demonstrated to his teammates that he is more than willing to mix it up and try to tackle somebody and all that sort of stuff. But he also managed to hurt his left shoulder, which doesn't seem to be stopping him from practicing. But if you're Kevin Stefanski or you're Alex Van Pelt, what do you tell Baker Mayfield about trying to tackle someone who's returning your interception?
Well, I think you know he's a competitor, and they don't want to take that out of him. But you got to be smart. You're not a match for these 250-pounders that run 4.6. Probably run about as fast as you do, and they're going to hit you if you're out there. You're open game, and anytime you put yourself unnecessarily in harm's way, it's not a good thing for the team. As far as trying to make the tackle and interception, the best one is don't throw the interception. Mm-hmm. But if you do, I think you could be more of a shepherd and more try to steer them back, towards the sideline or something, and not try to be the guy making the play. I think that's what Stefanski even said, is that they just want the quarterback to turn the player right back into the middle of the field. And you can do that without diving and using your shoulder and all those type things. So, yeah, I mean, he's done that 3 times in 2 games that I've noted. Is the interception last week. The first game against the Chiefs, he was the lead blocker on one of the reverses by Anthony Schwartz. And I don't think you really want to put yourself there. And he was the pitch guy on Jarvis Landry, on that play, the last play of the first half, which he wasn't supposed to be, but he was right in the middle of it there. So anytime you do that, you're fair game to those defenders that say, wow, this is our chance to really knock the quarterback out of the game. So now with that said, he said the shoulder popped in, popped out. From personal experience, that happened to me in high school quite a while ago. And it still is, it's all messed up. I mean, once it went out, it's all stretched out in there, and it repeatedly comes out. At least mine did over and over the years. And now it's all arthritic, and he can get that fixed, but it'll probably be in the off season. So I'm a little concerned if he lands the wrong way or throws up his arm the wrong way or gets hit the wrong way, that it will pop out and will not go back in right away. I mean, the first time mine just went in and out, but sometimes it gets stuck back there, and it's almost paralyzing, the pain. So, yeah, he's a tough guy. He's gritty. I'm a little concerned. I saw him favoring it a little bit and handing ball off yesterday when we were inside. They had practice indoors yesterday because it was raining like the flood times. and we're a little closer in there. So we got to see him working a little closer.
Right.
As opposed to today when they're outside and they seem to pick the field that is farthest away from the media. and so but when he was handing off yesterday, it was almost like he was keeping that left shoulder out of harm's way, like he turned his body so nobody could get near him and bump it or something. So there's no question, I bet you it's sore and it's hurting. The only thing they told me back in the day was you could put a harness on to hold it in place so it wouldn't dislocate, but that limits your mobility. I don't know if they got some type of contraption or not, but yeah, he practiced fully both days, so he's not going to let this stop him. But I would hope he would err a little and be a little smarter. We all know he's a tough guy, but there's other guys that can do that stuff.
Yeah, you love the attitude. You love his desire to mix it up. But he's got to recognize how valuable he is to this team. We don't want the Case Keenum era to start unnecessarily due to some, actions on the part of Baker. So don't wrap him in bubble wrap, but he's got to use his head about where he gets involved and when he puts himself in danger. Well, I have gone ahead and promised to everybody that this is your show. We're going to dive on your questions. So let's veer out of the news for a minute and deal with some questions that we got here. First one is from Eco OBR. And I think he's asking, like a lot of people are, do we see an aggressive defense against Chicago? And he says that they need to blitz Fields. So let's just get into this right now. About the Cleveland Browns playing a little bit soft, not doing a lot of blitzing, and being tormented by mobile quarterbacks. Do you think that Woods goes forward with a more aggressive strategy because he's got the rookie behind center?
Well, with that said, I do. I think part of it was last week they were playing from a lead. And also, he's still got some young guys out there. It was the first time Grant Delpit played. He was a little hesitant to go full throttle with him. He did right at the end of the game there, and it paid off. I think you're going to see more of that. Also with JOK, he's giving him a little more responsibility each week. And one of those responsibilities, would be more plays. He didn't play too many on defense. I think Delpit played more on defense than JOK. But you got Taki likely down this week. They're a little low on linebackers. I know they play maybe a little different positions, but I think they may move them around and use some things. I asked Joe Woods today about these mobile quarterbacks, and they've given him trouble in the first two games. Fields is more of a runner, even designed runner, than maybe Tyrod Taylor, who just took off, and Patrick Mahomes, who took off, when there was a lane. And he said it is really, you want your front four to be able to get to the quarterback, but if you rush 5 or you rush 6, you could open up more lanes. It's all about containing that quarterback and keeping him in there. I gathered from talking to him that, yes, he was going to try to do whatever they can to confuse him. I know the Bengals did a little last week. They had some tendencies when he was throwing in the preseason. They did a defensive alignment similar to what they saw in the preseason and where he threw the ball in that alignment. And then as the play unfolded, they ran to where he threw it, and he threw it right to him. Interception. That was a key one in the game. You got to think Woods is going to look at some of the tendencies. But yeah, I think the number one danger is his legs, because you can be unscripted there. You can just take off running. You see a little crease, and he's got 4.3 speed, like we saw over and over at Ohio State. So they got to put somebody on him. He even mentioned, you rush 6 or you bring a spy. I would like to see something like that, because as I even said in my question to him, I said, you got number 8 from the Ravens coming up and you're going to play him twice. You guys have to figure out how to stop the running quarterback.
Absolutely.
And he smiled and laughed and said yes. And so this would be a good chance to test and see if JOK could maybe spy on him or somebody else, John Johnson or something, to prevent him from running. Make the rookie throw the ball. Obviously, he's a good quarterback in throwing, but I'd take my chances better in coverage disguise than letting him just take off running.
Hey, I think we've got a little clip from Joe Woods. Let's listen to what Mr. Woods had to say this afternoon.
Issue with you personally?
Yeah, it's the third down when they had the long, I think it was 17-play drive, was really disappointing. I think we had 5 third down opportunities to get off, and you look at each one of them. If we play a little bit better, we're off the field. Especially the first one, and then all the other 4 ones don't happen. But it's what happened. It's on tape. We got to fix it.
And that's Joe Woods talking a little bit about the third down problems. The Browns have one of the worst records, if not the worst record so far this year, of containing teams on third down. Fred, let's throw this one to you. Do you think that's a scheme problem, or do you think that's a talent problem on this team? Why we're letting so many third and longs get converted, often through the quarterback running? Can Joe Woods fix that, do you think?
Well, ultimately, it's up to the players. I mean, they got the players. They went out and spent a lot of money on defensive players, the talent. If you're better and you're dominating the guy in front of you, you ought to be able to make any scheme work. And I do think that if Myles Garrett and Clowney and the interior guys are having trouble getting to the quarterback on their own, you're going to have to send, the Delpits or the JOKs or the corner blitzers. So I think he's just, in reading between the lines, he's trying to learn his players. They can practice all they want, but until you actually get on the field, John Johnson said this today, that you really can't learn to play with the other guys until you're really in the heat of the battle. And I agree with that. John Johnson wasn't pushing the panic button at all. He said on all the teams he'd been on with the Rams, they had the top defense in the league. Nobody remembers the first 2 games of the year. It's how you're playing down the stretch. I've said this over and over and agree 100% with him. With that said, yes, if you got tendencies and things that are going the wrong way, you got to correct it. But I do think that they will get it figured out. This would be a great opportunity this week. You got a Bears offensive line that's been in flux. And, you have had a couple pretty good, players that Garrett has went against, in Tunzel last week and the week before with the Chiefs and Orlando Brown. So as far as, all these guys coming together, you just got to get more from your pass rush. But if anything, I think he can't wait so long. If they're not getting it done, then start, sending the extra player or two, especially with Justin Fields. You want him to see things that he doesn't know what to do. He ran the zone read in college. And so I look for them, having a week of practice to put together a package of him doing the zone read and running himself, design plays. And if they shut him down, then he tosses it over to the receiver. So I think they got to be creative. They got to disguise things. I don't think, there's any problem with the scheme. And one thing with it, both games, the majority of the time in both games, the Browns were playing from the lead. And Joe Woods wants to come out with one more point than the other team. And so when he had a rookie quarterback, like he just said, they had a 15, 17 play drive. If Troy Hill makes the tackle on that 3rd and 13, they're off the field. He misses the tackle. They get a first down. And so is that Joe Woods' fault? No, it's the player's fault. So it's a little bit of both, but if you continually see him calling the wrong plays or long schemes, then you could question it. But right now, I want to see the players step up and just be better than their opponents. And a lot of that, there's a lot to look at. I mean, Denzel Ward was beat a few times. Greg Newsome had interference penalty. I'd like to see him play a little more press coverage. If anything, maybe that's the scheme. But Woods wants to play from the lead if the team's ahead, and just that's why you're seeing the softer coverage. Until he feels real comfortable, he's not going to be too aggressive when they have the lead.
Now, speaking of, putting pressure on Fields, my understanding is that the Bears are having a real problem with their interior offensive line. And I'm wondering if this might not be a good week to start rotating Clowney inside a little bit. If you have McKinley and Garrett on the ends and then McDowell and Clowney in the middle, I could see a natural rush just coming straight from that middle, those four guys, rather than having to send somebody else, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was expecting to see Clowney a little bit more in the inside. They brought up Afido, Adenigbo, or whatever. Afida, we'll say. He had some good pass rush with the Vikings. He had played with the Browns a couple years ago, and maybe he can give them a spark. But yeah, they definitely need a spark, and I think it's contagious. If one of those guys can just get to the quarterback, I think maybe then they'll live off of it. I do think that it's a work in progress. I see one of the questions about a swarming defense in the AFC North with the Ravens and the Steelers. Yeah, I don't know if Woods will ever get to that, but I do think he's going to be much more aggressive than he has been. And I think a lot of that is new personnel and just getting things going. And Anthony Walker's big on lining him up and calling the defense. They were without him last week. Malcolm Smith stepped in. You're lucky to have a veteran like that. But as far as, again, it's a new moving part. So I'm just anxious to see them come together. And I think eventually they'll do more and more of that stuff. I just think this week, if anything else with the rookie, it should force them into knowing disguises work and confusing the guy, because Justin Fields' athletic abilities off the charts. You want to get him thinking so he's not able to just use his athletic ability. If he has to just for a second think, what do I do here? That's where that's going to cause him to hesitate and make mistakes. And that's the best thing you have going for him. We saw Dwayne Haskins in college. He was pretty phenomenal, but not so good against the Browns last year in the NFL. And so I'd like to see that type of game plan, whatever that was, to do the same thing with Fields. Fields a little more athletic, but I think a young guy in his career, this is his first start. Haskins had played a little more. So we'll see what happens.
All right, fair enough. Let's flip to the other side of the ball, talk a little bit of offense here. Question from Watchdog XC, asking a question that I have as well. At what point are we going to see Chubb and Hunt in the game together? And granted, the Browns have a plethora of weapons out there that they can choose from, but that would seem to be a package that would be pretty daunting for defenses to figure out. What do you think, Fred?
Well, I've been on that bandwagon since,
yes, you have.
Freddie Kitchens was here. I thought of all the things Freddie Kitchens did, that was about the best thing he did. He did use both of them at the same time. They've taken the mantra here, at least so far, that they would rather have Chubb fresh in the end of the game or Hunt fresh at the end of the game, or both of them. And I can't fault it, because we saw it last year in the second half. Chubb, it almost seemed like every game, pounded on the defense, and sooner or later he exploded for a long gain. And, he did that last week, for the touchdown. And so I don't fault that philosophy, but it would seem like, you just have more to account for that defense. So, I don't know when we're going to see it. When we see it, I'm all for it, because I think just the sheer numbers, if you got Andy Janovich out there and Nick Chubb, or you got Kareem Hunt out there and Nick Chubb, is the defense going to pay attention to Hunt or Janovich? They're going to pay more attention to they have to account for him, even if you did nothing more than send both guys opposite directions when the snap. Somebody has to go with both guys, because if somebody doesn't go with both guys, you flip it to the one they don't go to. So that's just one less defender. So I don't know. Maybe that would be, I have to think Van Pelt, Stefanski have that brewing, and maybe they're just waiting to unleash it in a key game. Maybe it's AFC North stuff. I don't know, but I would like to see it. I would like to see him. I think, there's no question. I've seen both of them block, and both of them, I think, could be the lead blocker for the other one if you want to run the ball. But especially in passing situations, I think they could be the extra blocker, and they could also go out of the backfield and be a safety valve on either side. So I'm hoping to see it maybe as soon as this week.
All right. Another one about the offense. And by the way, thank you, Andy, for the 3 gift subs. And thank you, Daddy for Porter, for cheering the OBR 100 bits. All very appreciated here. This next question comes from Chubsalutely, and he asked, how concerned should we be about the Browns offensive line? I feel the gameplay might change, especially if Conklin or Wills isn't available or is struggling like last week. Now, Conklin, I think I haven't heard anything about him not playing, but Wills is still a question mark, right?
Yeah. Conklin just sat out last Wednesday, returned Thursday, Friday, and played. Wills didn't practice all week. Other than Friday, he was on the walkthrough. He started in the game after working out pregame and played 43 snaps until the ankles tightened up on him. And Blake Hance went in at left tackle. He didn't practice yesterday. He was out on the bikes today. Alex Van Pelt said he's very optimistic that he'll be able to play, and so did Stefanski yesterday. Now, we don't talk to Stefanski on Thursdays. We talk to him on Wednesday and then Friday. But Stefanski Wednesday, said he was optimistic Wills would be able to, because he played last week. He was no worse for wear. And so I just think they're just resting him. Van Pelt made it sound like that his ankle was swollen up pretty good before the game, and he still played. I think it's went down. I think he's obviously healing and getting better. So I think they're just keeping him off it. And I'll be surprised if he doesn't play. Treader is a no-brainer. He's playing. I've said this over and over. He's on the injury list every week as a limited. He doesn't practice Wednesday, Thursday. He goes through the walkthroughs on Fridays, and he plays on Sundays. So you got Treader, Wills, and Hubbard were the 3 offensive linemen. 2 of the 3 are going to play, in my opinion. Hubbard, I don't think will play. He was on the field today on the bike. He wasn't yesterday. We didn't see him yesterday, but so at least he was outside today. But it's looking to me like he's still going to be an inactive. And I think if they feel they got Blake Hance there and James Hudson, they got some depth to back up now, and Michael Dunn as well. So Wills, I think he'll play unless something today in practice or Friday goes awry where he goes backwards. But if he played in the game, that means they weren't worried about him getting injured further, because they didn't want him out multiple weeks. So he wanted to play, and if he wanted to play last week, I think he's going to want to play this week.
Yeah, that would make total sense. Let's see here. Daddy for Porter has a question, and he asked just anything on Greedy. Now, Greedy's not showing up in the injury report, is he?
No. And
just not
now they
playing.
brought that up. Greedy Williams didn't play any snaps on defense last week. He
Right.
was just on special teams. And actually, when we talked to Joe Woods today, it wasn't brought up. I actually had it as a second question, but I never got to it before we were done. It is a good question. They're just riding with Newsome, and they're not even spelling him. And I don't know why he wouldn't have went in as even the fourth corner. I know they played more 3 safeties last week, but the third corner was Troy Hill. So they might not even played more than 3. And that would tell you that Greedy's at least the fourth. I think he's fourth ahead of AJ Green and MJ Stewart. In fact, on the depth chart now, MJ Stewart is listed as a safety. Yep. Yeah, they got 5 corners and 5 safeties. So not that means a lot, but yeah, Greedy, it doesn't bode well for him that the gap would be now considered that big between Newsome and him, because if you remember, everybody thought, self included, it was a battle to be the starting right cornerback. He took himself out by missing almost all of training camp, but it doesn't look like he's come back in and brought his game up to speed. You drafted Newsome for a reason, 26 pick first round. I expected him to start, but I thought Williams would push it a little more. And, it'll be interesting. Keep your eye this week, see if he gets in, he plays any without an injury situation.
Speaking of nickel, the Bears seem to have a real problem around their nickel cornerback. They played a couple different guys in the position. They just don't know who they're going to put there. And I see some opportunities for the Browns when they are in the nickel to pick on whoever is the nickel corner. At least according, that's what I've been reading in terms of, on Bears sites and so on and so forth. Let's go to Superfly Rob. And Superfly Rob has a question. If the defense continues to trend in this direction, will there be any chance that they bring in Wade Phillips as a consultant? Wade Phillips is available, and the Browns are willing to spend money. Do you see those couple of things intersecting, Fred?
Well, I don't know Stefanski's history with Wade Phillips. And at this point, I don't think the front office is going to mandate anything to Kevin Stefanski like we saw under like Freddie Kitchens or under Hugh Jackson, where, hey, Todd Haley's the offensive coordinator, Greg Williams is the defensive coordinator. They might ask, do you want, but I think that would be an affront, to Joe Woods. Obviously, you bring somebody in saying, okay, you're on notice. I don't think at all. I think we're overreacting a little bit. Last year's defense was one of the worst in the league. They gave up 26.2. Well, they were in the bottom third, I'll say. 21st. They gave up 26.2 points a game. Through 2 games, they've given up 27 a game. So they're doing worse than they did last year, but you played the Chiefs in there. I said last year when the defense was pathetic, this team wasn't Super Bowl ready because they didn't have a defense that could get off the field, when you need be. So far, they haven't been able to get off the field. But I said you just got to get this defense better to give up about 20, 21, 22 a game, and this offense will score more than that a game. And the Browns are scoring 30 a game, and they have not really been stopped. I can point almost both games, they have self-destructed on the drives with turnovers and fumbles against the Chiefs and against the Texans. So I am not concerned about the offense. I think they will put up over 30 a game. So the defense just needs to get moving down a little bit from where they were. And again, they gave up 21 last week. Malcolm Smith said the team's goal is 17 points or less a game. That's even more aggressive than I thought. I'm thinking 20 a game puts you in a position to win every game. I don't care who you're playing. So that's Joe Woods' mentality also, is they've been playing from a lead. That's why, okay, as long as we stay, they won by 10 points last week, okay?
Right.
And we're talking like they lost by 40. This wasn't a 38-6 loss. I realized it was a rookie quarterback and all those things, but they just wanted to stay ahead. Whether you like it or not, that's what the way he looked at it last week. That long drive and hoping that in 17 plays the guy would make a mistake. He didn't. Right. So, yeah, the offense, I think, will continue to score, and I think the defense points allowed will continue to go down.
That it sounds like a recipe for success. Let's talk about the offense a little bit more. Obviously, the big story today was Odell Beckham talking to the media. I think we have a clip of Odell talking to the media, and then following that, we have a couple of questions on Odell Beckham. So if we can roll that.
Just like I said, we just taking it day by day. A long time ago, before the season even came out, the original plan was, before even seeing the schedule, it was 11 months post-op. Now I'm at right around 10 and a half. So, the progression started. I started to progress faster and faster, and I definitely was itching, wanting to go against that team, but it just didn't happen today. So, like I said, I'm just following God's plan. He put me in a good place to be here right now. So, like I say, it's just a day-by-day process. So technically, you're still ahead of schedule a couple weeks?
Yeah, I guess you could say
that. So OBJ apparently getting closer and closer to being part of the lineup. Stefanski said he's not ruling it out in terms of OBJ playing this weekend. But you've seen OBJ at practice a bit. Does he look ready to you, Fred? Does he look like he could go in there and cause some trouble for the Bears?
32 minutes in, and we finally bring up OBJ. Unbelievable. I figured that's all we talk about all the time. No, I've watched him since minicamp in June. Well, actually, they had one, and they had some before that. He wasn't doing a lot, but I saw him when he's kind of clowning around or doing the individuals, jumping up and touching the goalpost and right. One-handed catches, landing on the injured knee. I think he's totally fine. I posted a clip yesterday on Twitter of him and Baker, him running an out route. He looks really good, and I think it's more mental. Just being able to trust, in a game. He mentioned it today. It's a little bit, you get amped up and you get going a little more than you do in practice, obviously. And I think that from the Browns standpoint, they just want to make sure that he's around healthy later in the year than earlier in the year, because right. they want they hope to get to the playoffs, and they hope to have a long run there. So November, December is when you need him at his best. And so I think you get him out there. The one thing you can't simulate is getting hit. I think he even said in any game since being a kid, you're always nervous till you get that first hit. And I think same way. If he plays, I'd almost see a bubble screen on the first or second play just to get it over with and get him into the game, and get him acclimated to it. But I am interested to see, I think everybody is, how he fits in. Last year, the overriding thought was Baker forced the ball to Beckham over and over and over when he was out there, always looking for him, maybe throwing 10, 12 times his way, even if he wasn't open, it hurt the team. But in the second half of the season without Beckham, Baker started spreading the ball around, finding the open receiver, and the offense took off. I think it's a little bit of both. I think now the silver lining is, first of all, Baker Mayfield realized, I don't really need OBJ to make this offense hum. I got plenty of weapons. And he's another guy, a tremendous playmaker that can take the top off. And so I don't think you're going to see Baker locking in on OBJ like he did last year. He's grown, he's matured in this. And I don't think there's a subliminal, even if there was, thinking, boy, I got to get him the ball or he'll be mad at me. I think right now he doesn't care. If he's open, he'll get him the ball. If he's not, he's going elsewhere. So I think in the offense, and personally, I think Mayfield has matured and he knows the stats are proving out. He's the number one accurate passer through 2 weeks, 81%. I mean, that's unbelievable. Right, and that was what he was known for coming out of college. So with that being said, he knows if he goes to the open receiver, he's going to have the higher completions. I think on the other side, Beckham sat on the sidelines, and I think it really tore him apart last year to see the team take off on offense and to miss the playoffs without him. And I think he realized, they really don't need me. I can help this team stretch a defense, and there's things I can do that some of the other guys can't do. And if he comes in and he's okay with his role to maybe not be the focal point and maybe get 4 or 5 targets and catch 2 passes for 70 yards or whatever it may be, and he's okay with that, this team will be 100% better. But if his body language is saying, boy, I'm upset, I want to be the focal point, then that's going to be problems. I really think it's going to be what I said first. I think he really wants to win. That's what he said since he's been here. And if he wants to, he needs to just pick up his role, do what he's asked to do. If it's taken off, making a big play to change the game, so be it. This team wouldn't have made the playoffs last year. A lot of people forgot. He only played 7 games, but one of those games was against the Dallas Cowboys. He literally was a one-man wrecking crew. And if they don't win that game, they finish 10-6, and they don't make the playoffs because they lose the tiebreaker to the Miami Dolphins. So with that being said, if he can make the difference in one game, is that worth it? I think so. They're a different offense. They have more explosion. And he also has Anthony Schwartz that you could put opposite and take the pressure off Schwartz. And they say, well, we're not going to double team Schwartz. We'll double team Beckham, or vice versa. One of them's got a chance to beat their guy deep. And it opens up everything underneath with the 3 tight ends, Hunt and Chubb out of the backfield, or even, Higgins or Peoples-Jones or Felton out of the slot. So I think it's a big positive all the way around.
You think, if you were the coach and Odell Beckham suddenly became available, do you just put him out there for a limited number of plays and basically say, take off downfield and take the best Bears cornerback with you, and then open up those intermediate routes? Or are you looking for any way to get him the ball?
Well, if he's cleared and he's playing, I don't see it as a package deal. Stefanski was asked about that. Would he be on, if he does play, would he be on limited reps? And he said he kind of hemmed and hawed, and he didn't really answer it. But I got the idea, if he's cleared, he's cleared. If he's not, he's not. I don't know. I mean, but what I would take the approach, and I think this might be the approach that they take, is just see how it goes. Get him the ball. How you doing? How you feeling? How's it going? If he's going well, you ride it. If he's not, you take him out and use somebody else. But just the fact if he's out on the field in himself, even if he's a decoy, he is a game changer, and the defense has to think about it, and they have to worry. You talked about them having problems at the nickel corner and different things like that. That's a headache for the defensive coordinator, because whether they view him at 100% or whatever he is, and by the way, I don't think he's going to be out there unless they deem him and he deems himself 100%. Why would you hold back? The defensive coordinator has to say, well, I'm not going to worry about him. And then they just send him deep and it's a touchdown. So I think it's win-win no matter how you do it.
I'd like to take a second just to thank a bunch of you who have subscribed to the OBR Twitch. Baleb 969, Buck 82I, AK Wando, Brown Eyed Mary, and Waxy Dog Pound. All of you subscribe to the OBR Twitch, and I just want to thank you very much for doing that. Let's talk a little bit about Jarvis Landry. Landry, obviously, on the IR. He's not going to be playing for the next 3 weeks. Let's listen to a little bit of what Alex Van Pelt had to say this afternoon about his offense.
How, especially given the fact that you don't have Jarvis?
Big time. If he's available, that'll be huge for us. Losing Jarvis is big. Obviously, is a leadership role and a production role. So having people to fill in and take that space, that would only help us. So anytime you get great players back on the field, it only makes you better for sure.
Alex, Jarvis was such an insurance blanket for Baker. Does that role need to be taken by somebody?
I don't know if you could fill Jarvis's role with one person. It's kind of by committee. People are going to have to step up and play multiple spots for him. He is a huge leader for us, and we rely on him to get the things going at times. So I don't know if one person can do that, but I know we have the people that can fill in. It might be multiple people taking that role.
The comfort level he gives a quarterback on 36
Sure.
or something like that. He's a go-to guy.
He is.
Do you have one without him?
I think Higgins, like you said, would be a guy that they obviously have faith in. From the quarterback position, they played a lot together, and they have a good feel for each other, yes. But, to ask Higg to come in and, take the production role of Jarvis would be unfair to him.
All right. My follow-up question to that was, who do you think is going to see the most action in Jarvis Landry's absence? Van Pelt mentioned Rashard Higgins, and that seems like a reasonable guess. You have any thoughts on this, Fred, in terms of who do you see stepping up in Landry's absence?
Well, he did mention in the interview today that the touchdown that Felton had was Jarvis Landry's play. So that tells you Felton. I see kind of a split between Higgins and Felton. Peoples-Jones will move into, he'll if Beckham plays, and it was Landry and Peoples-Jones starting, it'll still be Peoples-Jones, and I see Beckham being the other starter. But then Higgins and Felton and will be the primary guys, and Schwartz, has his role. But I think that Felton might be more, in the slot. That seems what he said he was more suited for, and that's when he was explaining that touchdown was the play that would have went to Jarvis Landry if he would have been in the game. So with that said, Felton came up on the injury report at the end of practice today. He was out there, so it must have been something during the practice as limited. So we'll see how they list him tomorrow, but hopefully it's not too much. But he did say it's going to be a committee, that one guy can't do everything Landry did. And you saw, since Landry went down, I think on the second play of the game. So last week's alignment of receivers, would be similar to what they use this week, with the exception of OBJ. If he's out there, obviously you have one more receiver. But I do see Felton and Higgins being the primary role taker-upper of Landry.
Yeah, that would make some sense. One thing I noticed, wasn't hard to notice, but they put Landry on the IR, and then they brought the defensive end, whose name I'm not going to attempt to pronounce, up to the active roster instead of a wide receiver. And that leaves you thinking that they're very confident about the depth that they have at wide receiver. I'm more intrigued sort of about the defensive rotation. What does that say to you that they brought this guy up relative to the defensive rotation that the Browns have set up? They want to give a look at him and see if he might be able to do a little bit better than some of the players currently on the depth chart.
Well, they brought him up and over Porter Gustin and Sheldon Day, and some of the other guys that were here, in the preseason. Joe Jackson was on the active roster. He had a sack in the first game, but Afidi, they must feel that he can be right in that rotation with the three. Jackson's the fourth, and I expect, Afidi to be, if he's active, which I think he would be, will get his shot, because they need a jolt, they need a spark on the pass rush. And if somebody can do it, maybe he can give them a different look. But I think they're going to continue to rotate. We haven't seen, on the inside, Malik Jackson was supposed to be able to play some outside, and so far he hasn't. We thought Sheldon Day played real well in the preseason, and maybe he would be a guy that could play inside and outside, but they've kept him on the practice squad. So I think they feel that they've got the guys. They just need, to figure out a way how to get to them. And it seems like Garrett and Clowney have both been taking that wide, arc around the tackles, and they're just not getting there in time. It seems like you got to mix up some of your moves, and do stunts inside or outside, or line up, maybe line them up, Clowney or Garrett inside, and rush. And the interior of the Bears line, I think, is weak. That would be maybe where you test some of those guys and see if Malik McDowell or Malik Jackson can get to the quarterback. So
right.
I do whatever you can to loosen things up there. But if you keep them fresh, you can do more things. So I think that will be why they rotate them.
And hey, thank you, Red Rum 1018, for subscribing to the OBR Twitch. Much appreciated. I am going to go to some additional questions as they come up in the chat room. So we've got about 10 minutes left. If you have some questions or things you'd like us to talk about, please feel free to fire them away. I'm going to bring in a couple of questions from the Ask the Insiders forum. And the first one is really a look back at the Houston Texans game. And Super Bowl Before Death says, this is not really Browns related, but did the Texans coaches ever address why they decided to decline the penalty and punt on 4th and 2 instead of accepting the penalty and going for a first down on 3rd and 10? That was a bizarre move. What have you heard about that, Fred?
I haven't heard anything about it, mainly because it's with the Texans.
Right.
They probably talked about it down there, but and if Hugh Jackson was here, that would have been a head scratcher, and for the life of me, I don't know why you would take the play, but then punt, go for it at midfield, or instead of 3rd and 13, you would have had 3rd and 8, give yourself another play. It made no sense to me, but hey, first time making those decisions in the hot seat. Maybe he declined the penalty and then thought later, like, maybe we shouldn't go for it. Maybe we'd be given the ball at midfield. So anyway, no, it's a good question. I just haven't heard about it. I think he was, if he was going to punt, I think he was hoping, to get it inside the 5 and change the field position. But if I remember right, the guy kicked it in the end zone, so it turns out in a net about a 20, 30-yard punt when you get the ball in the 20 and you're kicking from the midfield. So bad move by Culley.
Yes, I think Mr. Culley had a brain malfunction of some sort, which not expected from him. He's done a very solid job, I got to say, with that Texans team to date, in my opinion, making them competitive, given that they're all put together out of pieces parts. Westside Wahoo wants to talk about his interpretation of the Joe Woods defense and ask, what are the benefits of playing soft zone defenses? So this is, you've got your safeties and your corners like 5 to 10 yards, free safety maybe as far as 20 yards off the ball. Why would you do that, Fred?
Well, I think I said it earlier. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think they're playing from a lead. And I go back to training camp, one of the first times we talked to him in August. we asked him what the most important statistic was, and it sounded like a coach cliche, and it is having one more point than or holding the offense to 1 point less than what your team has. So if you remember in the Chiefs game, they were up, I think 29-20, and earlier they had the lead most of that game. And even last week against the Texans, other than that 14-7 deficit, they tied it up at halftime. Then they were ahead the rest of the game. He's playing from a lead. And I think he's trying to just prevent the opponent from scoring, and taking the lead. And as long as they're ahead, I think he's playing soft, and I also think that he's got some young guys and new guys on the team that he just doesn't have total confidence in, and he doesn't want to call a play with a blown coverage, and he sees, an embarrassing 70-80 yard play because of busted coverage. So until he has more and more confidence, and Newsome out there, JOK, Delpit, and some of the other young players, Malik McDowell, I think he'll kind of have some of that soft element. But he reiterated a couple times today that they have to have more looks, more mix up the coverages, more aggressiveness in blitzing and things like that. So I think they will. And I think that it's a work in progress. John Johnson said the same thing, and he said, and he's one of the best safeties in the league. He's been with the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL, and he wasn't pushing any panic buttons. So I take that, pretty solidly that he has a good assessment on the defense, and he feels like they are improving and they are getting better. And all I can say is you have to say that we expected them to smother that rookie quarterback that never played before.
Right.
And they didn't. So I think that's where a lot of the, oh my. It's kind of like watching, if you're a Buckeye fan, watching the Ohio State-Tulsa game, and you felt they won by 21, you felt like they lost, because the way it went. Well, the NFL's tough to win games. The Browns won by 10. They don't look at it like, oh, we should have won by 20. They got out of there with a win. And now they move on, and hopefully this week it'll be a better defensive showing. I expect one of these games to just all of a sudden the lights go on and you have a big, breakout game, and you go, man, this defense is awesome.
Right. Well, I certainly hope so. Soft zones and prevent defenses are so frustrating. And I remember being frustrated with Marty Schottenheimer, who used to enjoy going to a prevent defense. And it's all to prevent the big score, but, teams just pick you apart 5-7 yards at a time, right? It's frustrating from, I think, a fan perspective to watch that happen. And defense has been a little bit frustrating.
Well, yeah, we
games.
saw it all last year, but we don't have Robert Jackson out there, and we don't have, Andrew Sendejo. And so I think that's the frustration. You expect, okay, get up there and shut them down. But so far, Denzel Ward didn't really have the greatest game last week. They were picking on him. And Greg Newsome, they haven't really picked on him yet, but he had a pass interference penalty, kept a drive going, and so hopefully these guys will get it all on the same page and be able to have the confidence that Ward can shut down his guy and Newsome can shut down his guy, and the rest can pick up the slack, and they can go get the quarterback. I think that's where it starts. You got to get pressure on the quarterback. Any quarterback in the league can pick apart a defense if they got 5, 6, 7 seconds and no pass rush. And so they got to get them off their spot before they are comfortable. And that starts against Justin Fields, or he'll hurt you.
Right. I have one sort of last question I want to delve into. Again, this is on the offense. The Browns running game obviously has been fantastic so far, particularly in the second half. Chubb coming out of the game, averaging nearly 9 yards carry against the Texans. But the Bears defense has a suspect secondary but they've only given up a little bit over 3 yards per carry, 3.3 yards per carry so far against the Bears defense. If you're Kevin Stefanski and you're looking at that weak secondary and strong run defense, do you just go in and sort of air it out, or do you want to see your excellent offensive line impose their will on that Chicago Bears defensive line? In other words, do you just run at these guys regardless and, stick with the run as much as you can until you're forced to pass?
Yeah, your bread and butter is the running game. You went over 100 yards in both games. You got two of the top running backs in the NFL. Why would you change that mantra until they take it away? If they stop you and you're having no success, then you do. But I think there's things you can do just having the element of the running game. That's what everything with Baker works, the rollouts, the play action pass,
Right.
all that works off of the threat of the running game. And as we've seen it last year and even this year, the continual pounding of particularly Nick Chubb as well as Hunt. Eventually, all it takes is one play to pop, and either guy can be gone, and it breaks the game wide open. And particularly if you do that in the first, second, third quarter, when the game's usually on the line, like it was last week, 24-21, when they were answering after that touchdown drive by the Texans, Nick Chubb came to the rescue and pounded the ball most of the way down the field. But then he broke through the line for a 26-yard touchdown. Would have been a 90-yarder if they were on their own 10. I mean, once he's in the secondary, he's gone. And I think that continually pounding on the ground leads to big. You just can't give up on it, because how many times did we see last year? Nothing. They can't run the ball, and then boom, game changer. That's what you got to do. And Nick Chubb, as well as Kareem Hunt, can go the distance at any time. So you got to just stay with that and keep the defense honest. But you use your passing game, off that, especially with Landry out. I mean, teams are going to expect you to run, so you just use that big offensive line and push and see what you can do against the Bears defense. They've been pretty good, but I don't think they've been up against a running team like the Browns.
It reminds me of the old Butch Davis quote after Jamal Lewis put up over 200 yards on us, that other than those, 80-yard runs or 70 yards runs, he was just averaging a little bit over 2 yards per run. But that's the way it's supposed to work. He
had 295 yards. 295 yards on 5 carries, but I think that's all that matters.
That's all that matters. All right. Well, thank you very much, Fred, for sharing your wisdom and being our eyes and ears in Berea for us. We're going to wrap it up. I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. All of our new subs who joined tonight, thank you very, very much for doing so. And Fred and I will be back here, hopefully, to talk about a win over the Bears next Thursday at 7. We'll see you then.